Welcome to Breaking Through the Contradictions. Here we. Nope, wrong one. So sorry. So sorry. Are you ready to save our kids? If children are the living messages that we send to a time that we will not see, Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers that will support each child's individual journey. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those quietly discussed challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Hi, Kristen.
I love it.
I'm so sorry.
I love just jumping right in like this, man. There's nothing like it.
You got to do it, right?
It's authentic. It makes it all authentic.
Life is not as simple as we would like, as we think it's going to be. It is going to be a little bit more, it can be a little much. So today was one of those days. And so today's my day. So I started with the wrong show. But as soon as I seen it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even click the buttons to get off of there. So it's always it's all crazy. All right. So I thank you very much for hanging out with me today. Today is slightly different. When I originally came on board to to do this today, my thought and intention was actually to do this alone. Don't just
do it alone. You could have told me to take a hike.
No. Then because it's important for me to do that, for me to do it today. Let's get this one. Sorry, I'm trying to do this real quick. But the reason why is because it's been a lot this year. We just started, and I actually have talked to somebody, and they said that this wasn't very common for everyone. So this is the reason why I'm going to do it this way. And I'm grateful you're here with me today, because it's going to be a way for me to flesh some of this stuff out.
Okay.
So one is, as always say thank you to all those people who come and join us and have a conversation about what we're talking about. So I'm just going to say for myself, hi, Maria. Thanks for joining. So my name is Tabitha Barron, and I am the founder of Keeping Your Kids Safe. Because of an incident that happened with my niece when she was 5 years old, I decided to develop a program that allowed each child to effectively communicate their way home. You as a parent, as a guardian, and even those dismissal teams will get a text message during the process. So I'm telling you who I am, because the reason why Save Our Kids was created, because it was actually created because I was answering a call of frustration. So a lot of times we don't talk about the frustration that happens as business owners. And I'm not saying I'm small. I'm not saying I'm large. I'm a business owner, period. End of story. So as a business owner, there's a lot of things we do not talk about, or we do not have open discussions about, because we are thinking we are the only one having this experience. But that's not the case. So out of frustration for my current situation, I was tired of the objections. I was tired of hearing that problem doesn't exist. I was tired of hearing do it this way. I was frustrated because all I wanted to do was help. All I wanted to do was support those children and to give an extra helping hand to the teachers, to the principals, even sometimes to the superintendents. I felt bad. I still do feel bad for the parents that have to go on there and plead for their child because something has gone wrong. I feel bad for those parents who've had to bury their children because of a mistake of another adult. And I feel bad for the teaching staff that is actually the point of contention for a lot of people. So I just wanted to help, but I wasn't being met with, oh, we want to help you help us. So I created Save Our Kids, because what I learned in my travels was that everyone else was having the same problem I was having. There was a lot. Phil Vitrano, Phil Vitrano and Laurelyn Mears actually created Helpopedia, right? So Helpopedia helps parents, teachers, and administrators, right? But why is it that they're specifically say help, but for whatever reason they're met with that's not a real problem, or this is not how we want to move forward? But he actually says that 90 greater than 90%. What do we have, Phil? We have 44% report depression, 37% report anxiety, and 90% of our children are sleep deprived. With all of that information, that's enough to say something's wrong. So Helpopedia, can you help us solve some of these problems? Absolutely. But they're not met with, come on in, let's sit down and have a conversation.
Right.
They're met with, here's a stack of papers, go fill this out, become an approved vendor, and then we'll see what we can do. Right. Which isn't good. It's not favorable. So Save Our Kids was created because I wanted the parents to be able to see solutions. I wanted the teachers to know that they're not alone and there are people out here pitching for them. And I wanted the principals to know that you're part of our community. We want to support you. Right. So the response time, I'm always heartbroken about how people respond to me. I see you nodding, and I'm going to assume that you've had these experiences for yourself inside and outside of those walls.
Inside, but not out. Once I left and attached the word advocate to my name, it's amazing how quickly a school system will jump and cross their P's and Q's and make sure everything is good to go because I am coming in as an advocate. And it scares me that that's all it takes to scare the school systems, but it's needed because that's when they get things done. You know, I have a client who I'm currently working with. Over 7 months, she asked for a meeting. Didn't happen. I wrote a letter, and 6 days later, not only were we at the table with school personnel, but there were 3 representatives from the district level there as well. It shouldn't have taken that.
Right. And so those are the things that I get frustrated about, right?
Yes.
So my thing is this: for this first month of the year, everybody's like rah rah 2024, more in 2024, right? So we're doing all this rah rah rah. But if you can kind of take a look, I was struggling. I'm not gonna say I don't know. I was struggling. I still am trying to work over that, but I was struggling because I'm struggling to find my way. I'm struggling to find my community. I'm struggling to find the people who want to support those children and want me to go along with them, right? I want to support our kids, our kiddos, our children, our young adults, and all those names we give them, because I'm not going to be here forever, but I want to know that they're okay. And what I don't want to happen is that we don't educate them enough, or we don't do enough to prepare them for when we are not going to be available to support them. And that's not what's happening.
Right. Right.
Very, very discouraging. I'm hopeful about a change. Oh, so I'm going to say here in a minute for the mental health part. It is very, very important that we take care of ourselves, right? But if I was struggling in January for my own stuff, and I was having a hard time seeing through that, imagine how many other children are having problems with that, right?
Exactly. If you were the one going through it, then you know there's how many others are out there. You know, kids have said that to me before about certain funny things, but it's so true. You know, you're not alone. And that's the thing that's scary about our work, is that there's always something else. You know, one of the things you brought up is that you got tired of people not doing, and so that you decided to jump in and try and save it. That's why I left the school system. You know, everybody, you know, hears that and they go, oh, she abandoned the school system. No, I actually left a school system to try and fix all the school systems because I see such holes. And as an educator, I was sitting on the other side of the table and being told that I had to tell parents, oh, well, you know, that's just not possible at this time, because behind the scenes didn't fit the budget, or we didn't have the personnel, or whatever it might have been. And I got tired of that, because that's not what is best for kids. And we have to save our kids in order to have a future and have a generation to take over when we are no longer able to. And, you say all the time, that's the generation that's going to be taking care of us. Yes. So we got to do our best to take care of them now.
But then too, we have to think about it like this. So for me, I think in terms of if there is a reduction of students, that means there's going to be a reduction of labor that's going to be released. So if you have 50 million children and you're going to reduce the population that gets released into the workforce, and we'll just say maybe, so then you drop it to, so 55 million, you drop it to 50 million. Or how about we start at 50 million, we drop it to 45. That's 45 million that are available to enter the workforce, maybe. But if you have a significant number who are not as literate as they need to be, the gap gets, that number gets smaller and smaller to go. But how many jobs are they covering? So the number of jobs that they're covering, can the new generations that are coming on board cover the amount of jobs that they need to cover, because we're not putting out quality education to the students that are a part of that?
Great question. And that, I don't know if I know the answer to that. What do you think? I'm going to throw it back at you, because I don't know that I have an answer.
I don't think that they're covering. I think the numbers that are being released into the workforce right now are actually going to show that there is not enough to cover the amount of jobs to keep the United States just not, just kind of balanced. So only within the US or Europe as well. So we can work. So for me, for keeping your kids safe, I can go anywhere. I'm actually working on working with another country right now. So I'm always open to that. So please feel free to reach out to me. We can always connect and have that conversation. But I don't think that we can cover. I don't. And so here's the thing. China had this very similar situation, and they gapped out in some parts where so their leadership is having to work way longer than what they expected to, because of the fact that they did not have enough bandwidth to actually cover the bodies that they need to change. So we might be looking at something very similar very soon, because
I was going to say, sounds like that teacher retention issue. I'm not calling it a shortage. That retention issue is going to create that shortage eventually. And, people keep saying, oh, we have a shortage. No, we don't. We have a retention problem. We have teachers that are sitting in careers like me right now, so fully certified with a master's degree, and I'm choosing to not be in a school because I don't feel like I make enough difference there, because I was never allowed to just do what I was hired to do. I was pulled to do 8 other things because of the retention problem right now. And when you don't have teachers at work, you have to cover those classrooms. So positions like mine go to the wayside.
Right.
So, and I hope to have an international reach one day. I know Maria asked you, do you work with international? I do personally, will do anything I can to advocate, as long as I'm legally allowed. That's the nice thing about being an advocate. As long as I feel comfortable in the situation and I'm legally allowed to be there, there's nobody you can't take to a meeting as an advocate or hire as an advocate.
Yeah, I'm an advocate too.
Yep.
I stumbled across it, but I've been an advocate for well over 20 years, because I've had to advocate for my own child. And so that makes a tremendous difference, right?
Sia said, what a powerful word. And I'll tell you what, it is. Advocate is one of my most powerful favorite words in the world, because it's an empowering word. And when I was teaching the little people, I loved to teach them how to advocate for themselves. There's nothing more powerful than hearing a 6 or 7-year-old say to somebody, well, I know that I need to sit on this side of the room because I learn better when I'm up front. How powerful is that to hear? I mean, it's just the coolest thing in the world.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Because that's when you know that what you were teaching them is what they need to understand. So that means that child, that student, is going to be more likely to advocate for themselves. Says, makes me uncomfortable when I sit over here, so I prefer to be here. Things like that. And I have to commend those parents who listen to their children too. because I just had a parent recently tell me that explain to me that her child says, I don't feel comfortable with that child as my friend, so I don't want to do a play date.
Right.
Now, and so it's good to have that. So that's very important in that sense. So I'm glad I'm glad that we're able to see the outcomes of what we are actually putting into our children, right?
Absolutely. And that empowerment is not giving kids a crutch. I think a lot of times people think, oh, if we ask kids how they feel about things, then we're trying to tell them what to think. That's not it at all. It's
Right.
Hey, you need to know now what you think and how to stand up for yourself from a very young age. And the more we can do that, the better off, our future's going to be.
This
our
is
kids.
True. So what I will say is this. So part of my objections have been, this doesn't happen here. That's not a real problem. I didn't know there was a solution. Here's what I will say. Do you remember seeing just recently where I don't know if it was national news, but here in Texas,
Yes.
the 11-year-old who got away from somebody who was trying to abduct her.
No, I don't know that I did.
Okay, so the little person living in an apartment complex. So as she was walking to school, a car drove up, made a U-turn, turned the car away from the school, jumped out the car and lunged at her. They caught it all on recording, all of it on recording, and on those doorbell cameras. And so
wow,
all you heard was her screaming and running. But then he ran the other direction because now he had to jump in his car and run away. What a weirdo. I say that because you live in the same complex and you didn't think she recognized you.
Right.
So, but they caught him. But that's what I'm talking about. We're sitting here talking about people. So people say to me, this doesn't happen. But because it wasn't on school grounds, school can't say that it's their responsibility. But because it happened away from home, parents don't have visibility, right? So it happens in between. The most vulnerable time of a child's day is traveling, right? And remember seeing that. It was a 37-year-old man trying to snatch an 11-year-old girl. It was terrible, right? And I'm just saying, so why is it that when I have this conversation, yes, that was creepy to watch. It was heart-wrenching to watch. So when I go into a school or I engage in a conversation with somebody and they say, yeah, no, we're good. We don't need your solution. And we're still using a manual solution. I'm confused at why we're having that. So the stats tell us that we need to make a change, right? We have a decreased enrollment. I've spoken to a number of people who have actually said that the numbers are going down. If you go and look at the national statistics, you will notice there is a decline in enrollment for school. And keep in mind, I have to go and look and find out where it is, but I was provided 7 million children are not enrolled in school, but that doesn't mean they're not going to school. That just means they're not going to public education, right? So decreased enrollment for schools will allow their schools to ask for your children to come in early. That means 3-year-olds will now be eligible to come into what they consider something like universal pre-K or early kinder. So then that way they can pull your student in early. I disagree with that. I do not have young children, but I can see the potential for that to be something that we're paying. I believe that the consequence of bringing your students in before the age of 5 is a larger consequence than anybody realizes is going to happen. So, yes, I agree. I don't condone violence, but firmly believe in self-defense and taking adequate measures. Absolutely. So if it was me and my kids, see, I already know. I already have 2 jumpsuits, and I'm just prepared for those. So, and
you just get me. I love it. I love it. She's got her jumpsuits ready. I should get mine ready just in case.
I only got 2. I will go in. They won't have to do a trial or anything. I will like, we're good. I'm all right. I said what I need to say. Move on. So
see, I'm only 4'10", I could use half a jumpsuit.
Nope. You need all of the jumpsuit, my friend.
That was for
So
Sia and Rocky, because I know that they've got my height just by a little bit.
it's all right. You just drag them pants along.
I love it.
Increase in anxiety for children, families, and teaching staff. We are more medicated now than we have been in the past years. So what is happening? So my question, part of my call to action is I want people to reach out to me. Send me a direct message.
Yeah.
Oh, Kristen, get ready. Send me a direct message and tell me, what are we doing? So, what is it that I need to do that will help you overcome whatever you have in front of you? Because
Right.
saving our kids is a joint and a collective effort, period.
Absolutely.
You can't do it any other way. I don't know how else we're doing it. And so, we're medicating the kids more anxiety. We're medicating the kids more ADHD. We're medicating the kids more depression. And now we're having to combat these other things. And I never turn to my children and says, I 100% understand where you are. I do not. I do not. I do not deal with the stuff that they are dealing with. I do not understand it. I don't understand having my friends sell me into slavery. I don't understand me having my friend tell me I'm a thought and then, hey, do you mind going on a date with this person, and then that person disappearing?
Right.
I didn't have somebody walking up to me saying, you want to hit this joint, hit this pipe, hit this vape pen. I didn't
Just
have
try
those
this.
things.
Right. I didn't either. And the few times that something did happen in my community, it was so little, it was, or not so little, it was such a big deal because it never happened. Now kids are so desensitized to things that nothing shocks them.
Right.
I know I've shared with you before, I was in a live shooter situation for over 4 hours at a school. My very last year, I was in public education. It's probably the tipping point of one of the reasons I made the decision to leave that year. But I was in a room with over 35 sixth graders. There were 3 adults in there. The adults had more fear in them than any of the children. Not one of them seemed scared. Not one of them understood why it was a dangerous situation or how they could be putting us in danger by making noise. And it was eye-opening to me that it's because that's what they live day in and day out. They're so used to hearing the gunshots in the neighborhood or seeing and hearing about violence in their families that it is what it is. And it should not be that way.
Yes, 100% should not be that way. And that is very discouraging, heartbreaking, and so disrespectful to the little people. Because
Absolutely.
how do we reconcile or justify a child being so used to being in an active shooter experience that they don't even budge when they start hearing the gunfire?
Yes.
That means that we don't make them more and more susceptible to literally not making it out of that alive. Because the difference between being fearful and acting within that and being used to hearing it is 2 totally different experiences. So for me, in a high-risk neighborhood, when the gunfire would start, because I was so used to hearing it, I would go to the window.
Because you want to see what's happening. What's going on? Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
that's the way these kids are. They're like, what is that gun? What sound was that?
And now that's a problem because they're going directly to see versus ducking and cover.
Absolutely.
So they become numb to all of that.
Dr. CJ just said they become numb, and that's the scariest thing. On the flip side, though, now I know this isn't breaking the contradictions, but I did have a student who was a 6th grader, straight A student, very, very well behaved, never got in trouble. All of a sudden, one day I got called to the office, and he wasn't officially one of my students. He just went to the school where I was. I worked with kids that tended to need very intensive behavioral support. So I was shocked when I got this phone call. I was needed immediately in the office due to this child being in trouble. Come to find out, he took a knife to school. Well, he didn't take a knife to school. He was carrying a knife so that he would be safe walking to and from school. There is a distinct difference. But he was suspended for 10 days because he had a weapon on campus. Now, how is that not something that's not, I mean, that doesn't work.
That
We're
doesn't
sending
work.
such a mixed message to him of, we don't want you to be safe as you walk to and from school. And, he's 11. He's not going to understand, well, a knife isn't going to fix the problem and all that stuff. But my goodness, he cried and cried and cried. He said, I've never been in trouble before. And all I was trying to do was stay alive. Talk about pulling on your heartstrings.
That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yep,
right?
absolutely, right there.
Seen, heard. You need to be seen and heard, right? But
Yes.
you also need to eat and have shelter. So if if your safety is always in jeopardy, then when do they stop being on high alert? Their bodies are like vibrating.
Well, and this particular child, I happened to work in his last period class, and he tended to be a lot more goofy in that classroom. And I used to say to him, I don't get it. I see you all day and you're good. What's going on? It's right before he had to go home. That was that last class period before he knew he had to make that walk home. And in the winter, we got out of school close to 4, and it would be dark for some kids by the time they were getting home. So I wouldn't want to walk to that, through that neighborhood by myself in dark. In fact, I didn't even want to walk to my car alone at night. I typically had a male escort take me out to my car because that's just the way that my staff operated, because you never knew what could happen.
I never thought about that. So we do have like some very interesting messages, because you joined the fun size crew.
Yeah. And they all have a beaten height too. I never even got to 5 foot. I know some of them are 4'11", but I'm only 4'10". So
crazy. And then Phil, he's going to connect us with Taylor Swift. So
I love that idea. Think about it. Hands Across America. Look at how successful that was. Taylor Swift could totally do it for us.
Yeah, let's do it.
I say we need an in. I like it.
We need to wait after Super Bowl, because the NFL is cashing in on that part.
Yeah, a little busy. They're cashing in on her right now.
But then Sia brings up a very good point. So it could be a policy to turn in stuff as they enter the school and exit. So, and I think that that's a really good point, because when you put those Title I schools or those schools in those areas, you have to protect further than the gate, than your grounds, right? So just because they're out of your property line. I remember this principle. I remember this because I thought, this is so crazy. You're upset because the parents have told their children to walk across the street off of school grounds and wait for them at an abandoned church.
Right.
But you are worried that they're going to be picked up. But when I asked you to join our program, you said, no, thank you. So I don't understand that. Why are you concerned because the parents are going to pick them up across the street because they're off of your property? Because you've said somewhere along the lines that if they're off of school grounds, that's no longer my problem. Exactly. But now you are trying to infringe upon where it's no longer your problem. But so it's almost like they want it both ways. Very, 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 very discouraging. So the stats tell us one side of the picture only. It only tells us one side of the picture. I am looking for teachers, principals, superintendents, and parents to come and tell me their side of the story, because that's when we're going to be able to solve the problems that all of us don't see. Because my experience with my children is totally different from my friend's experience with her children. But we do have an increase in transitioning teachers, because we know 55% want to quit. That means that 25% probably will leave,
right?
Which will increase the divide of the teacher retention problem, not a shortage problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that's it.
And then what is the enrollment at college levels for new teacher prep programs? Because I know some schools are doing away with their programs. They don't have enough enrollment.
Exactly. A lot of students are not turning into teachers because why should they? So you're sitting there watching. So as someone's just sitting in a classroom, the student pops off on the teacher, gets all up in their face, wants to fight, knuck and buck, right?
Right.
And the students are all sitting there saying, and then on their career day, they're like, who wants to be a teacher?
Right.
Did you see what we just experienced the other day? I don't want to do that.
Did you see what my teacher goes through?
So no, so they're not signing up for that. So we'll have that.
on the flip side of that, I have a hairdresser who obviously does my hair, who said to me, I always wanted to be a teacher, but I just couldn't afford to do it. She's cutting my hair, making more money than a teacher.
Yep.
I love my hairdresser. I think they have amazing talent. It's not the same as being a teacher, and the amount of education that goes into becoming a teacher, and that salary difference is just, it doesn't make sense.
Yep. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So then we talk about, so again, the stats only tell us one side of the picture.
Yep.
However, the younger generation, they're actually answering our questions without us asking them, right?
Yeah.
The younger generation says, your response was trash as adults.
Yep.
We don't approve of that message, and therefore we're not going that path. So this leads right down into why teaching staff, why the teacher industry is not bringing in as many students, because they're like, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. We don't like the way you taught us. Therefore, we're not going to come in and continue to perpetuate that.
Right.
We don't like your response to our safety challenges. So we're not gonna go and participate in that.
Right.
So if you think about what's happening, that's what's happening right now. You said, go to school, get good grades, and we'll get a good job.
Right.
How many of them went to school, got degrees, and cannot get a job in their industry? One.
Absolutely.
Their industry does not pay enough for them to be able to live comfortably, not extravagantly. Just comfortably, right? They can't do that. That's two. And then when they go into the workforce, the behavior that exists in those doors is so bad that they leave the industry anyway because they can't deal with it. That's three. Yes. So we set them up for that. And then now they're saying, oh, we know how to make our money and we don't have to go to work for you. We can do it differently. So now you have influencers, social media influencers everywhere, review, and people are bringing up their own businesses. They're answering our lack of response to them saying, you guys hurt me and the things did not work out the way I expected.
Yes. And I think one of the things that I'm predicting with education is you're going to see a lot more of independent schools opening. Not so many, private schools and charter schools even can get complicated, but just independent schools that are small and individually run. I know of two teachers in particular I have taught with over the years who said, this is for the birds. I'm opening my own school. And they both have done so successfully. And their buildings probably house 100 students or less, which in my world, that sounds amazing. To have only 100 students that you are housing and taking care of, imagine what you can do growth wise. Yep. But,
I think about
that's
that
something that's to come.
There's another person he's going to join us later on in this season. He's going to join us because it looks like he created a school. And he is running a school, and he is actually part of Helpopedia. So we're going to highlight, our goal is to highlight a lot of people. Parents think that there's no options. I only have to go to public school. Yes. I'm here to tell you, you got at least two. Give me a call and I'll tell you what they are. And the reason why is because people need you to believe that there are no options and that they are your only option. Because if they are your only option, that means that no matter what happens, it's an unconscious buy that that has to happen, and they win regardless of whether or not you win or lose.
Absolutely.
So it kind of looks like that. And so I personally know that there's always one other way to get out of a sticky situation. You just have to be willing to have that discussion to uncover what that is.
Yeah. And I think that the last part of what you said is so key. You just have to be willing to. And so many people aren't. I don't want to touch that. And that's what I love about this show and about the Thursday show that you're doing is you're making people talk about these things and getting that conversation going because it's not happening enough.
No. Because how many people really? So if you think about it, if you sat in the corner of a room that is very dark, very dark, would they ever see you?
Right.
You know, would they know you were there? But if you're how many children have you had over the years that sit there and they don't say anything, and you don't recognize that, one, they're not eating at home, or two,
Right.
they're being abused, or something's going on, but they just sit there and they don't say anything and they're
Yes.
quiet and things like
Those
that.
are
And then
those are the kids that worry me the most a lot of the times, because you don't get them to open up. I used to do a writing activity every year because I would like to see what they would tell me. And I would say, tell me 3 things I don't know about you. And some years I got the fluffy, oh, I love dogs and I love to travel and, all those nice things. But there was one year that I had kids that wrote the letters that were so unbelievably heavy emotionally. The things they confided in me and told me about, I never looked at the class the same way again. Not in a bad way. It made me really turn on a trauma-informed lens and approach my whole mindset towards them shifted from these kids don't care to these kids can't care because there's so many other things going on in their lives. And they actually ended up being probably the group I'm the most proud of over the years. They had the most growth because I think my team and I changed the way we looked at it and approached them differently. And we recognized the things they told us in the letters, like, I don't know if I'm going to eat after I leave school, or we fled my country because it was, in the middle of a war. And now my mom and dad are getting divorced, just the number of things that these little bodies are carrying. And these were 5th graders. So they were even a little bit older than a lot of kids, but they still so much stuff going on in these kids' worlds. They can't possibly sit down and care about what you're teaching in math.
And then two, as we were growing up, I know we needed two jobs, right? We needed 2 jobs coming through that house.
Yep.
And so the inflation has gotten so bad now that can you keep milk in the refrigerator at $4 a half a gallon?
Right.
Right. Or can you keep just the simple stuff, the bread, peanut butter, and jelly in the house for the kids to be able to eat? A lot of kids go days without, days without eating, or just eating a little bit here and there. But if the child is not eating, that means the parents are not eating. And then these other things that are happening. And although it's not the school's responsibility, there are a lot of us that can help you and your students, but we have to be willing, and you have to be willing to at least say, okay, let's have a conversation.
Yes.
I personally am not here to point out all the things you're doing wrong as teaching staff, as parents, as community members. I'm not interested in that model. I don't like it. There is absolutely no benefit to that. However, if you're doing something that's not helpful and it's wrong, I want to be able to have a conversation either with you or in the community about the situation to see how we can improve the outcome of that specific situation. And I think at times people are just like, you just want to blame me. I don't have that type of time.
No. Well, and I think then there's people like us that are having these conversations, and luckily we've got all these wonderful people tuning in. Sia and I've talked multiple times, and I'm sure you guys have as well. Sia and I both don't have children. And so a lot of these things that I'm talking about because I worked in education, she's going, I didn't know about this. How did I not know about this? And it's amazing how many people just don't know out there. And if they did, how much difference it would make. As you say all the time, this is our taxpayer money, providing and funding these things. If we don't like it, we've got to speak up. And it takes getting in touch with our people in charge and saying, you're doing it wrong.
Right. Because I remember the one parent who said she cried because she realized that it was a broken promise. Yeah. I never wanted my children to have a story. Right. I wanted them to be able to get into their adulthood without the trauma of growing up underneath a crazy mom.
Yeah.
I wanted them to be able to grow up and be like, she was a little nutty, but we made it, y'all, and it was great.
But she was a great mom.
but I think I've given them a story, and that story may not be as favorable as I want it to be. But
Yes.
all of us have a story to tell. We just have to be really willing to do that, to do something different.
Yes.
These children have a story, and their story will make grown men fall to their knees in
Oh, yeah.
tears. And so, if that's what they're dealing with in their little tiny bodies, who are we to say that it's not, that it's okay? They will get over it. They're resilient, they bounce. Oh, these are all the things that I've been told, right? They bounce, they're resilient, they'll they're not paying attention. It doesn't matter to them. That's above their head, all in which is wrong. None of it makes sense.
And even if they are those ways, they are little people, and it is our job to fix it. We can't just say, oh, well, it's their fault because they did XYZ, or they're not doing XYZ. We're the adults. Even for those 16-year-old kids that look like men and women that are out there, they are children. And
Yes.
even up to 25, our brains are not fully developed, and we've got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Sia's brought up some great
Funny.
points, in the comments about taxes. And
Yep.
you don't know what you don't know. And if, out of sight, out of mind, in terms of, I don't think about some of those things because it doesn't affect me directly. Well, it does in the long run, because
Yep.
those are the kids that, like we keep saying, are going to be the ones of the future taking
So
care of that.
yes. So let's do that, because I wrote notes to make sure I was covering that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, what's in it for you? What's in it for you? Why does it matter? So, Sia, you're absolutely correct. And tell your friends you're paying school taxes whether you have children or not. And here's the things. She said our school district spends $27 million on their admin building. Yes.
And yet we're talking about a Department of Education cut of $28 billion. What? Like, come on.
Here's my healthy dose of silence. This is what I'm talking about, because what's in it for you? So this has never been about me. I want to work with teachers. I want to work with families. I want to work with principals, but it has nothing to do with me. Do I win? Yes. You know where I win? In my heart, because I know that what I'm doing is from my heart. I want to help because I want to do that. This is what's in it for you, though.
Yes.
Happier families, teachers, and children's and leaders. You know what happiness brings us? More educated teams, more innovators, and more soldiers, foot soldiers, because we still need those, right?
Oh, yeah.
And all of this ends us up with a reduction of stress, reduction of loneliness, reduction of crime. How many happy criminals have you met?
Right. Sitting around, just good old times, because they all choose to do that most of the time. They're like, I'm going to grow up and be a criminal. That's what I want to do.
Oh, actually, the one guy did say he grew up to be a criminal.
Well, I've had a couple of
the Bitcoin guy. He actually wanted to be a criminal. I was like, he thought he was going to get away with something, I think, but I didn't even bother to watch that. But the point is that when we answer what we're saying. So I am a product of public education, right? But I worked the nerves of all of my teachers, instructors, and professors, because once I finished the
one
work,
of my kids,
once you give me the work and I finish it, I'm coming to you saying, so what else can I learn from this situation?
Well,
and
then
that
you
was
would
their
have been one
problem.
of my kids, because my kids were saying F you, MFer, and I'm not doing this work. So
Smooth criminal.
I give you some credit. Yeah, there you go. Those are the ones striving.
Right. Let's see us doing that thing. The district office salaries can be so bloated. Emily says they are telling teachers we can't afford to give you raises, but we need you to take on X, Y, and Z as volunteer positions. And that's the reason.
And I'll add to that, I worked in a district office, but because I was younger, I came in on a teacher salary and they did not move me. I stayed on a teacher salary working a 12-month position. So there's so many districts that are so screwed up on so many levels There could have been somebody down the hall making twice as much money as me, doing less work than me, and I wouldn't have known it because I wasn't in a state with a union. So there is some benefit to that, and I get we need nice office buildings, because I'll tell you what, the building I worked in, it was the special ed department. So we weren't even in the district office. We were in like the drudgy old school down the street that was abandoned, but we still needed to use it. So they just stuck our offices in it. So we were using old school buildings. Now, we needed a new office. It takes money to make one of those happen. But, at the same time, being transparent with taxpayers of this is why we're doing what we're doing, or, this is what it's going to do for you. That's that kills me. And the Emily bringing up the whole, we can't afford to pay our teachers, or, we have to cut positions. Okay, let's look at those hefty salaries sitting up at the district office. Do we really need every single person sitting up there? Because I can tell you that a lot of times over the years, I've had educators that I've worked with who were my bosses who didn't do well. And the district's way of handling them was to remove them from a school and put them in a cushy district position where they didn't deal with people. They kept them because they couldn't really fire them, but there's a lot of that going on too. So talk about that bureaucracy and red tape that's, tied to it all.
This is painful. My thing is this. You need an administration building. I 100% get it. $27 million is excessive. And what I will also say is that, so I don't know which one she's in, but there's about 3 of them up there. I'm going to tell you that if your Title I schools don't look as good as your regular schools, that $27 million, shame on you. I don't care what district you belong to. Shame on you. Because I've been up in some of those schools, and those Title I schools look like jails. They look like a juvenile detention center for education. And if that's what the child is looking at to be educated, shame on you for $27 million for your administrative building, because you should be applying. You can take $15 million to make a beautiful building and give that money over to the Title I schools and give them a grounds that has greenery, trees, nice walkway, and the entryway is in drab, and the lights look like welcome to Willy Wonka. Come on in, and we're going to educate you.
At the way a school should look. And then how about if we disperse those district people and put them in the buildings so that they're all hands on deck when need to be? Because, that doesn't happen. If I'm sitting in a district position, there can be 3 or 4 teachers that are out down the street, and that's okay. That's not my problem. But some districts are starting to call district offices, or schools are calling district offices and saying, we're 10 teachers short today. You need to send people. And so you have random people from the IT group or, working in the math department showing up and covering classes. So there is, so much of this just ridiculousness. Me, I could go on
and that's forever. And that's the reason why today was a different type of a call.
And absolutely.
This was definitely one of those things, because I felt like I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get myself going in this. And it was because, first of all, I wasn't ready. And then secondly, I have to call you out differently. Yes, I say things out loud, like shame on you for spending $27 million on an administration building, right? A lot of people may not say that, but at the end of the day, when you pay this type of money into taxes and then you don't see the benefit being distributed to the children, then I say, this is about you. This is not about them. So we got into school for what? I'm going to give you this one example as I start to wrap this up. When my children were, I used to work for a major company in Illinois. I'm not going to tell who it is because they have to sponsor in order to get their names. So, but I had to wake up early in the morning. I had to be there at 5:00 in the morning and start working. Okay. But no childcare center is ever open at 5:00 in the morning. They just don't. But they had a center on the premises. So I would take my little ones in there. My little ones were little, I had 2 under the age of 2. And they were 18 months apart. So that my life was very, very painful at the time. So the thing about it was I kept sending my kids in because this is the only place that they could go. But the childcare, they kept feeding my child something she was allergic to every single day. So even though I wrote and said, this child is allergic, please do not feed her this food,
Oh my
they
gosh.
they seen it as optional. And they kept seeing it as optional because it wasn't sending her into anaphylaxis. What they didn't realize was it wasn't sending her immediately into anaphylaxis. However, we were reaping the benefits of their bad behavior during the course of the evening as the
Absolutely.
allergy continued to get as things started to get worse and worse. And hers was like it would collect and then explode type of thing, type of allergy. Very interesting. But
People's stupidity sometimes ceases to amaze me. I mean,
but then it gets worse.
oh God.
Because I can laugh at it now, but at the time I was getting ready to go to jail. I had told you I have 2 jumpsuits. I'm very
Jumpsuit
clear
ready.
about that, right? So I say to her, I says, please tell me that you get into this because you like children, because you're running the center and you keep feeding my kids something that he is getting sick from every single day. I have to deal with this stuff. Stop doing that. Did you get into this because you like kids? Her answer was, no, I don't like children. I just needed a job. And I said, my response is not a good example of responding to bad behavior. I'm just going to say it out loud. Let's say this out loud.
Okay, doke.
What I said to her next was, if you feed my child one more thing she's allergic to, I will beat your behind up this road and down the next. I promise you. Her response to me was, I'm going to call security. I said, here are my break times. Make sure they're here when I walk in the door.
Right. No kidding.
The point in saying that message was that it's amazing who is actually in front of your students. Yes. If the person doesn't even want to be there or they're not interested in teaching, then the opportunity for them to display, exhibit, and perpetuate bad behavior onto your child is very much a higher probability.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying for that.
Absolutely. I got to bring something up before we wrap up in a little bit. Emily brought up something that I'm like fuming under the skin because it just infuriates me. You know, we're talking about this $27 million building for an administrator. But as a teacher, she had to fundraise for new countertops in her classroom because it wasn't in the budget. I can remember experiencing exactly things like that, you know, being told, oh, it's not in the budget, or, oh, we don't have the funds to do that. One particular, mine, I didn't have to replace countertops, but I walked into a classroom that had desks and chairs for kids, no desk or chair for an adult, and no bookshelves, nothing else ever in the room, not even built-ins. And I was told, well, if you want to get stuff, that'll be on your own. And so I had to go out and buy bookshelves and different things that I could bring in. I brought furniture from home. You know, I piecemealed and borrowed from people. But that to me was such a, what do you mean I have to put furniture in my classroom? You know, they're not even giving teachers what they need to do their jobs well. And then we expect them to stick around and expect people that care to stick around. That's why you're ending up with people like what you're dealing with, saying, nope, it's just a job. That's exactly what it's becoming, is just something somebody can do. I got offered a contract job as an educator with 25 years experience and a master's degree from Hopkins, paying me $20 an hour. My response was, thank you, but I can work at the gas station for $18 an hour. Why in the world would I put that amount of time and energy into something for 20? I'm not going to lower myself to that expectations. Emily said her kids didn't even have enough chairs and they had a mouse problem.
Yeah. This is a lot. This is a lot. That's why I'm saying I don't get this part. So here again, this is not about what's in it for me.
Absolutely.
What you're saying. So my situation happened greater than 20 years ago because my little ones are no longer little. Right. But I'm going to say that had a teacher had that much of a significant impact in my life that I remember what she looks like. I remember where we were when we had the conversation. I understand and remember the situation. that is telling you how impactful we are to how we are as teachers are impactful to other people in their lives. This cannot continue. Save Our Kids is here to help you, help people who want to be supported. So we want to support those who are teaching. We want to connect to the education groups with families, with solutions and options. There are options to all of the challenges each one of us are experiencing. We have to be willing to join the community that's going to help support that. We're here to help support you. Kristen, you are an advocate and you have your own business, and you and Christine have written a book about it. So that's one thing you're doing. My call to action for everyone here: if you are a parent, know of a parent, or our teachers, ask them, connect with me, direct message. I would love to be able to talk to you. You can come here. You don't have to come here. The entire goal is we need more solution providers, because the situation is getting worse and it's not changing. The active shooters are getting more and more so. We are in the school year. We've already had some, and we're currently watching the unfolding of them charging now parents with those type of crimes now. So that's another additional part of it. I want happier people, because happier people make happier employees, that make happier doctors, to make happier landscapers, to make happier dentists. And happier people do not rob, steal, and kill. Okay?
Absolutely.
They just don't. Hurt people will hurt people all day long. But if you are happy, you're less likely to walk around slapping people in the face, punching them in the gut, and kidnapping their kids. So let's build a better community when it comes to that. So Save Our Kids is meant to bring a light in a dark place, to show solutions to challenges that every one of us are dealing with, but none of us are really talking about, and to have open dialogue and conversations that will allow us the ability to find a solution to a problem we don't think we have an answer to.
Yep.
So what do you want to say as we wrap up?
Oh, that's an open book. What do I want to say? Well, I think the thing that today, my takeaway today is just speak up and speak out. You and I've talked privately about how I was one of those people sitting around saying something's got to change, something's got to change. And then I went, why can't I be the one to make this change? So that is my goal. Christine Lynn Jones and I really are working to start a true movement called Bridging the Educational Gap Between Home and School. Our goal is to help close that discrepancy, helping support parents and teachers at the same time. A lot of these things we're talking about today about teachers, a lot of times the things that are happening are out of the teacher's control. They're just the minions doing what they're being told to do. Or they're just, like we said, the people on the ground that don't really care, that are just showing up because it's a job, because they can't find anybody else to do it. There are enough people that care about education out there that if they treated educators the right way, then it would be a different world. And I hope that in my lifetime, we see that shift, occur. I just heard of another friend that quit her job as of Friday. She left the public school system and is going to work for a private school. And that is, becoming more and more the norm. And when I said to her, well, what happened? Why did you make the decision to leave? She said, because I was tired of not being respected. And that's what it goes back to. A lot of times is the lack of respect. You get what you pay for. If we want good people taking care of our kids, we have to invest in them.
Right. And here's the thing. Sadly enough, the people have invested in education. Yes. The ones who are holding the purse strings have chosen a different pathway that is not helpful or supportive to what our end goal is. So what I will ask for everyone is to make sure that you have conversations and start writing down what your intentions for your child's education is. Yep. And if the school that you're currently in does not offer that, let's have a conversation, because Ron Clark did not like what was happening in Illinois, and he made a decision to create a school of his own, Ron Clark Academy. I am extremely impressed by that man, because he is most of his students are actually college bound, and that is very abnormal. I was looking up stats today, and I learned that Seattle School District has one of the highest academic records, 72% math and reading, right? That is phenomenal. So whatever they're doing in education there is something that can be modeled elsewhere. But we have got, when your ego is the first thing I meet, or any parent meets going in the room, you're in the wrong position. It's time for you to bow out, because your ego cannot be bigger than the request for my child to be educated, or anybody's child to be educated.
Absolutely.
So at that point,
Amen.
we'll be back next week, same time, same place. And just keep in mind, if you're interested in having a conversation on the air, or you have a solution that you would like to share, please feel free to send me a message whenever you're ready. But until then, until next time, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week, same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest, like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.